The forest was quieter than usual that morning, a stillness that almost hummed in my ears. My wife, Claire, was bent over the map, her brow furrowed beneath the brim of her hat. "It should be just over this ridge," she said, tracing a faint line with her finger. I glanced down at the GPS unit, blank screen. The compass needle wavered in my other hand, steady in one direction, while the faint, steady buzz of the wind in the pines reminded me how far we were from the hum of highways and phones. We hadn't had service for hours. We were 3 days into what was supposed to be a 5-day hike through the high country. Tall granite spires, glacier-fed streams, and enough open sky to make you feel small in the best possible way. The first 2 days had gone smoothly, following the GPS trail and the well-worn paths others had carved before us. But somewhere past the last ridge, under that endless stretch of blue, the signal vanished. Batteries low, map folded in half. We suddenly realised we hadn't looked up from our screens in hours. Claire laughed nervously, brushing a mosquito from her cheek. "Guess it's time to go analog." I could tell she was uneasy, though she tried to hide it. The map, creased, smudged, smelling faintly of pine and sweat, wasn't much to go on. But the compass was solid, old-school brass, with a little chip in the glass from my days in Scouts. It had never failed me, even when I'd forgotten how to trust it. We took a seat on a smooth granite boulder, eating the last of our trail mix. Around us, the woods stretched into miles of whispering fir and the faint chatter of distant streams. A raven glided overhead, letting out a hoarse caw that echoed through the trees. "West," I said finally, comparing the map to the lay of the land. "The trail loops toward the lake if we keep west. Shouldn't be more than 6 miles. Claire gave me that sceptical look she reserves for my more optimistic guesses, but nodded anyway. Then west it is. We hoisted our packs, the leather straps creaking, and stepped off the faint dirt path we'd been following. The smell of pine needles thickened as we walked, soft earth cushioning each step. Without the constant guidance of the GPS, every bend in the trail felt unfamiliar, every tree a landmark. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy, cutting long, golden shafts across our path. I found myself listening to the forest again. The steady rhythm of our footsteps, the chirp of hidden crickets, the occasional rustle of something unseen in the brush. For the first time in the trip, I felt both uneasy and alive, like the wilderness had finally noticed us and was deciding what to do. The trail, or what we hoped was the trail, narrowed as we pressed deeper into the woods. The map showed a stream cutting across the valley floor, and that became our beacon. "Follow the water," I said, remembering an old saying from a ranger I'd met years ago. "It always leads somewhere." Claire nodded, though her steps had slowed. The heat was heavier now, the kind that made your shirt cling and your pack straps dig deep into your shoulders. We found the stream after another hour, a silver ribbon of cold water winding through a bed of smooth, sun-warmed stones. Kneeling beside it, we dipped our hands in, letting the chill sink into our bones. "Feels like we're back on track," she said, though the uncertainty in her voice told another story. We filtered water, filled our bottles, and studied the map again. The lines were faint, the ink worn thin where moisture had bled into the paper, but the contour markings were still legible enough. The stream should have led us toward the lake, our next waypoint, if we stayed parallel to its flow. For a while, we followed it easily. Dragonflies hovered over the shallows, their wings flashing like bits of glass in the sun. Occasionally, we'd spot a deer print or the narrow trail of a raccoon, both reassuring signs that something else knew the way. But then the forest began to tighten, trees crowding in, underbrush clawing at our legs. The stream forked into 2 smaller channels, one veering left toward a marshy lowland, the other climbing into rougher terrain. We hesitated. Claire unfolded the map again, squinting at it. "Which one do you think?" she asked. "The right one looks like it's heading higher," I said. "The lake's supposed to be up near the pass." I tried to sound confident, but inside I wasn't sure. The ground grew steeper, and soon the sound of running water faded behind us. I took out the compass. North still pointed steady, west remained our goal, but every few steps I wondered if we'd misjudged something small, some contour or turn. By late afternoon, the light had shifted into that copper glow that warns you daylight is fading. We hadn't seen any sign of the lake, just ridges and forest. The air was cooling fast, and the shadows stretched long across the ground. "We should set up camp," Claire said quietly. "No sense pushing on if we don't know where we are." We found a flat patch of ground beneath a cluster of firs and pitched the tent. As the last light faded, we built a small fire, nothing more than a flicker of warmth against the coming night. The woods were alive with sound, the soft trill of crickets, the whisper of the wind moving through pine needles, and somewhere distant, the lonely hoot of an owl. Claire leaned close to the fire, rubbing her hands. "Kind of funny," she said after a while. "We've spent years trusting screens to tell us where to go, and now it's just us and a piece of paper." I nodded, poking at the fire with a stick. "Feels strange, doesn't it? But maybe that's how it's supposed to be." We sat there in the flickering glow, the stars starting to show through the branches overhead, and I felt the forest settle around us, vast, indifferent, yet oddly comforting. Tomorrow we'd have to find our way again, but for that moment we belonged exactly where we were. Morning came with the kind of quiet that only deep wilderness can hold. No cars, no voices, just the soft sigh of wind weaving through the trees. I woke to a thin beam of sunlight filtering through the tent flap, catching the specks of dust and ash still lingering from last night's fire. Claire was already up, crouched by the coals with the little metal pot balanced over them. The faint smell of instant coffee drifted through the chill air, mingling with pine and damp earth. "Morning," I said, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. "Morning," she replied with a small smile. "I think I found our lake." She pointed to a rise in the distance where the trees opened into a brighter patch of sky. "If we head west-northwest, we should hit it within 2 hours." It felt good to have a direction again. We packed up camp, folded the map carefully, and set out with the compass steady in hand. The ground was still damp from dew, and our boots left dark prints on the moss. A chipmunk darted across the path ahead, tail flicking like a spark. Each step brought a little more confidence back, and for the first time since losing the GPS, I felt like we were learning the land rather than just passing through it. But navigation by instinct has a funny way of humbling you. By midday, the forest thickened again, the light dimming under the tall canopy. The slope climbed sharply, and soon we were picking our way across a jumble of granite and roots. Claire slipped once, catching herself with her hands before laughing it off. "Guess I'm out of practice," she said, brushing dirt from her knees. We paused near a fallen log to check the map again. The compass pointed true, but something didn't fit. The contour lines said we should have been descending toward the lake by now, yet the ground still rose beneath our feet. I traced the trail with a finger, then the stream we'd left behind. "We might have taken the wrong fork after all," I admitted. Claire sighed, but didn't say anything right away. Instead, she took a long look around, the slant of light, the sound of wind, the faint trickle of water somewhere below. "Let's backtrack to that split," she said finally. "Better to correct early than wander blind." We turned back, retracing our steps. It's strange how a familiar stretch of trail can look entirely different in reverse. The same boulders and branches, yet you question every landmark. After an hour, we reached the fork again, and I realised just how far we'd climbed off course. The left channel, the one leading into the marshy valley, glimmered faintly with reflected sky. We followed it this time, the ground squelching underfoot, mosquitoes whining near our ears. But soon the smell of water grew stronger, fresh and wild, and through a stand of willows we caught the first glimpse of blue, a shimmering sheet of lake, cradled by the hills. Claire let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "We did it," she whispered. We dropped our packs near the shore. The lake stretched out like a mirror, still except for the rings where trout rose to feed. The sun was high now, warm on our backs. We filled our bottles, washed our faces, and laughed like two kids who'd just found treasure. I pulled the compass from my pocket, turning it in my palm. "Not bad for two people who forgot how to read a map," I said. Claire smiled, eyes bright. Maybe we just needed to remember how to trust ourselves. The lake rippled gently in the breeze, and for the first time in days, we didn't feel lost at all. The sun dipped low by late afternoon, brushing the lake in streaks of orange and rose. We'd made camp near the waterline, a soft spot of sand between two weathered boulders. The tent stood steady, and a small fire popped and hissed beside us. The air was cool, crisp enough that each breath felt clean. Claire had her boots off, feet soaking in the shallows, the ripples gleaming gold around her ankles. "You know," she said, "if the GPS hadn't died, we might have missed this place entirely." She was right. The map hadn't shown the lake this beautifully, not the reflections of pine spires trembling in its surface, not the chorus of frogs that began tuning up as twilight deepened. Sometimes the best parts of a trail can't be captured in coordinates. I sat with my coffee mug, the firelight flickering across its rim, and watched as the first stars peeked through the thinning sky. We spent the evening exploring the shoreline, leaving barefoot prints in the damp sand. Claire found a patch of blueberries tangled among the reeds, and we gathered a handful, laughing as the juice stained our fingers purple. I used a flat rock to skip stones. She counted aloud, cheering when one managed 6 skips before sinking with a plunk. The forest edge glowed faintly in the firelight when we returned, a comforting wall of shadow and scent, sap, moss, and the faint sweetness of smoke. After dinner, the wind picked up. It whispered through the trees, bending the flames low. We sat shoulder to shoulder, wrapped in our jackets, listening to the soft lap of waves against the shore. "Do you think anyone's worried?" Claire asked quietly. I shook my head. "We're only a little off schedule, and besides, we're exactly where we're meant to be." She smiled at that, leaning her head against my shoulder. The moment stretched out, fire crackling, the world falling silent except for the sigh of the lake. I felt something shift in me, subtle but real. Maybe it was the relief of finding our way, or the reminder that being lost isn't always a mistake. Sometimes it's just the world's way of asking you to slow down, to look up, to listen. Before turning in, I stepped away from camp to take one last look. Stars were in full bloom overhead, thousands, scattered across the velvet dark. I could see the faint shimmer of the Milky Way, a river of light, stretching forever. I thought about the compass in my pocket, how small it seemed compared to the sky, yet how it pointed steady, all the same. Back in the tent, the sound of the lake lulled us towards sleep. Claire whispered, half dreaming, "Tomorrow we find the trail again." "Tomorrow," I said softly. "But tonight, let's stay right here." And we did, listening to the gentle rhythm of the water, feeling utterly at peace in the middle of nowhere. Dawn came soft and silver, mist curling above the lake like breath on cold glass. The forest woke slowly around us, an orchestra of unseen wings, the faint drumming of a woodpecker far off, and the steady trickle of water feeding into the shore. Claire stirred beside me, blinking against the pale light filtering through the tent fabric. "Coffee?" she mumbled, her voice rough from sleep. I grinned, reaching for the pot we'd left by the fire ring, and soon the faint hiss of boiling water joined the morning sounds. We ate our breakfast quietly, oats, a few leftover blueberries, and the last of our coffee grounds. The mist thinned, and across the water I caught sight of a faint ridgeline, the one we'd meant to reach 2 days ago. I unfolded the map on a flat rock, tracing our location with a fingertip. "There," I said, "if we cut through the valley and follow the slope, we'll rejoin the main trail by noon." Claire leaned over my shoulder, squinting. "Think we can trust your compass this time?" I chuckled. "It's the only one we've got." We packed up camp, leaving nothing but a ring of cooled ash and the soft imprint of where the tent had been. The air was clear now, crisp enough to carry the scent of wet pine and stone. As we climbed from the lakeshore, I turned once more to look back. The water shimmered in the morning light, so calm, so still, it felt like the world was holding its breath. The way out wasn't easy. We bushwhacked, through tangled brush, crossed shallow streams and scrambled up loose rock. but the compass held true, and by late morning the faint impression of a real trail appeared beneath our boots again, a strip of packed earth winding between the trees. Claire let out a whoop that echoed through the valley. "Trail!" she shouted, laughing. I couldn't help but join in. When we finally broke through to a small clearing, I checked the GPS out of habit. The screen flickered, then came back to life with a soft beep, bars of signal, bright and mocking. Claire glanced at it, then at me, and shook her head with a smile. "Of course! Now it works!" We stood there a moment, breathing hard, looking down at the little screen that had once felt like our lifeline. Then I switched it off and slipped it back into my pack. "Let's finish this one the old way," I said. As we hiked the last miles out, the forest opened into a sea of gold grass swaying in the wind. The world felt larger somehow, not just a map of waypoints and coordinates, but a living thing that asked you to meet it on its own terms. We had learned the shape of it the hard way, with tired legs, scratched hands, and the humbling realization that getting lost isn't always failure. Sometimes it's how you find what really matters. That evening, when we reached the trailhead and the car came into view, Claire turned to me with that quiet look of satisfaction only a long trek can earn. "So," she said, "next time, we bring the map first?" I laughed. "Next time, we bring both, and trust ourselves more than either." The wind moved through the pines above us, a final whisper of farewell. And as we drove away, I caught one last glimpse of the distant ridge in the mirror, remote, wild, and steady as a compass needle pointing home.